Day because we are going to be talking about word problems. Yes, I know. It's like you see words in math and you're like, I don't want to do it. So just because you see words doesn't mean you should put the paper away, because you then will do nothing on this homework assignment, which is an issue. Some of you guys see word problems, bless you by the way. Some of you guys see word problems and you're like, not even going to read it. Some of you guys see word problems and you read it and you're like, I don't even want to think about it. So you must try on your homework. Do your best and try. No matter what, if you see a word problem, try. If you see a challenge problem, try. I don't care if it's wrong. If you see the quote over there, it says, mistakes are proof that you are trying. Hey, you tried. You got it wrong? Hey, you tried. Okay? You learn from your mistakes. I don't care about mistakes. Do you understand that? I will make mistakes. I was teaching this lesson last hour. I made mistakes. It's okay. We're all human. Do we understand that? On a side note to that, if I make a mistake, please tell me the moment I make this mistake and don't wait until the end of the problem. All right? All right. So let's get started here. If you have questions as we're going through notes, please let me know. So it says the sum of half an integer, it should say an integer, and 13 is more than the integer. So when you see the word sum, Evan, what should you think? Add. Yeah, it's the answer to an addition problem, so you should be adding this. So it says the sum of half an integer. When you see half an integer, Hannah, what does that make you think? What does halving something make you think? What are you doing? Jacob.
Divide.
Divide by what?
2.
Either divide by 2 or multiply by what? What's the other thing you get to? Multiply by what, Lexi? Yeah. So I usually think multiply, but if you divide by 2, it's the same thing. So multiply by a half. And then integer I'm going to call n. So I'm going to label that over here. So n is my integer. It's always important to label your variables. The EOC will require that as part of your total points for your performance event. So make sure you get used to it. So you're going to multiply the integer by a half. So it says the sum of half an integer and. So that and is where the addition sign is going to go. 13. So what does is mean? Oops, I just get your stuff. I'm sorry. What does is mean, Maddie?
Equals.
Okay, good. So equals 75 more than the integer. 75 more than. So more than means you're going to do what, Myra? You'll add, but it adds at the end, okay? So more than means you add 75 at the end, but you are right. And then we said the integer is n. So now, it's just like with those of you that are in a foreign language right now, whether it be French, German, or Spanish. This is like translating English into math, the math language, okay? So that's why it can be difficult for kids, because it's like you're learning a new language. So we add half of an integer plus 13 is equal to 75 more than the integer, right? Lexi, do you have a question?
Is it okay if I put 75 plus n instead of
Okay.
No.
Yes, because addition is commutative.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't do that if it was subtraction.
Right. Yes, because it's commutative. Why I'm not doing it in notes is because I need you guys to get used to it for when it's subtraction, because it is an issue for subtraction. So I want you to understand when it says like more than or less than, that means put it at the end. And yes, you can do that with addition. I get that, but subtraction is not commutative, and so I don't want you guys to get like those situations confused. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So you wouldn't get the wrong answer by doing that, if that's what you're asking. All right, so then we solve it. So I subtract n on both sides, so it's like there's a 1 in front of this. So if I do a half minus 1n, what do I get? You can put it in your calculators if you need to. A half minus 1. What is a half minus 1? Myra?
Negative 1/2.
So we have negative 1/2 n plus 13 equals 75. So I subtract 13 on both sides. And I get negative 1/2 n equals 62. How do I get n alone at this point? What can I do, Lexi? You can multiply by the reciprocal, so you can multiply by -2. That's just flipping it, is the reciprocal. Or, because you guys know how to put fractions in your calculators, you literally can type in 62 divided by -1 ABC2 in your calculator, and you get the same thing. So if I multiply by -2, that leaves me with n equals -124. Okay, before we move on, can somebody define integer for me? What is an integer? What does an integer mean? Lexi? So it's a negative or positive. Number is kind of general, so more specifically. You're right. I know you're thinking the right thing. But what specifically? It just means it can't be a fraction or a decimal. Okay? So it's a number along a number line that is not a fraction or a decimal. All right? So it's just the whole negative or positives.
I thought I included that.
When you said number?
Yeah.
No.
I thought that, I don't know.
You thought you said it.
Well, no, I thought that they included,
You thought it did include decimals and fractions?
But I guess I just.
So that's why I wanted to be more specific. So an integer does not include those numbers. Okay? Now the real number system does include all of those, but a integer is just like numbers without fractions and decimals. Okay? All right. The next one there, it says 6 times the sum. So it means that you're multiplying 6 times the entire sum. When it says 6 times the sum, it means multiply 6 by the entire sum. Remember, sum means addition. We talked about that in the last problem. So you're taking the sum of an integer. So I'm going to label my integer n. Now, if Maddie wanted to name the integer x, and Mackenzie wanted to name it p, it doesn't matter. Just tell me what your variables mean, okay? So an integer, so n and 15. So you're multiplying 6 times that whole entire thing. So that means those need to be in parentheses. Jennifer, what did we say is meant? What does is mean? There you go. Is equal to the difference. Peyton, what's the difference?
Subtraction.
So we need to subtract here. So you're subtracting these two numbers. So in between the and is your subtraction. Twice the integer. Twice means you're doing what operation? What operation is twice? Multiply. Good job, Tommy. The integer and 42. Okay, so when we go to translate that is 6 times n plus 15 equals 2n minus 42. So I do the distributive property. Subtract 2n on both sides. Then I subtract 90 on both sides. Divide by 4. So n equals negative 33. Okay, before we move on to a different type of word problem, what questions do you guys have for me so far? If you do not have any questions, go ahead and flip to the next slide. We can continue through examples. All right, the perimeter. When you see the word perimeter, Evan, what should you think?
Add up all sides.
Add up all the sides. So the perimeter of an isosceles triangle. So for those of you that do not know what an isosceles triangle is, an isosceles triangle has two sides that are the same and an opposite side. It could be the same if it's equilateral, but it has to have two sides that are the same. These are known as the legs. The sides that are the same are the legs, and the bottom part is the base that is not equivalent. Just so you know what an isosceles triangle is. Rather important for this question. So the perimeter of an isosceles triangle is 52 inches. If the legs are 5 more than 3 times the base, find the length of the base and the legs. So this is in terms of the base. So the base is what I know. Which means that that bottom part I'm just going to label B because that's my base. All right, so the legs are 5 more than 3 times the base. So 5 more than, Peyton, what does that mean? What does 5 more than mean? Addition, and are you going to add it to the beginning or the end? Very good. 3 times the base. Jen, what does 3 times the base mean? Multiplication of 3 in the base, right? Like 3b. Okay, so that means that our legs are 3b plus 5. Okay, so how do I set up my equation if the perimeter is 52? How can I set up this equation, Myra? Good, you add up all the sides. So she gave me the 3 different side lengths, and we know the perimeter is 52, so it equals 52. Right, so 3b, and b is 7b, and 5 is 10. Then I subtract 10. So B is 6. But it asks you not just to find what B is, it says find the base and the legs. So if the base is 6, how can we find the legs? And it's 6 inches, so don't put the units. How can I go about finding the legs, Peyton?
Well, 6 and 1 B is.
plug 6 in where B is here. So we would do 3 times 6 times plus 5. So that'd be 30 plus 5, which is, that's not 30 plus 5. I did 5 times 6. See, guys, I make mistakes all the time. So that's 18 plus 5, which is 23. So my legs are 23 inches. Okay, what questions do you have there? Make sure you're answering what the question is asking. If it says just find the variable, then you're done there. But if it says to find the other lengths, you need to plug that back in the lengths of those sides. So you got to make sure you're answering the right thing. Yes, Mackenzie. Yeah. All right. The length of a rectangle is 5 more than 5 times its width. Find the length and the width if the perimeter of the rectangle is 406. So we have a rectangle. Opposite sides are congruent. Pictures are very important. Okay, so it's all in terms of the width. So in this case, I'm going to say W equals the width. So I'm going to label my width W. It says the length of a rectangle is 5 centimeters more. Tommy, what does 5 centimeters more mean? At the beginning or the end? At the end, right. More than or less than means at the end. And then what does 5 times its width mean? Hannah, what does 5 times its width mean? 5W means multiply 5 and W. So we know that these are 5W plus 5. So Zach, what would the equation be for my perimeter of this one? Do you need help? So remember, perimeter means add up all the sides. If you look at my rectangle over by number 4, do you see all the side lengths on it? So you're going to add up all those. Does that help you? So what would you add? You don't have to tell me it's simplified. You can literally just tell me exactly what to add together.
5W.
Good. Good. And what does that equal? Very good. So 5 and 5 is 10, W and W is 2, so 10 and 2 is 12W. And then we have 5 plus 5, which is 10. And then we divide by 12. Did I lose something somewhere? Why did I make this 12 negative? Does anybody know why I made that 12 negative? I have no clue why. Sorry, guys. All right, so we divide by 12. And W equals, is it 33 centimeters? Then how can I find the length then? What can I do now to find the length? What can I do now to find the length? Myra, go ahead. So we do 5 times 33 plus 5. 5 times 33 is 165 plus 5, which is 170. So the length equals 170 centimeters. Okay, look at those first two before we do the next one and see if you have any questions for me. Yes, Pete. All right, the width of a rectangle is 40 feet. The width of a rectangle is 40 feet. This is 50 less than twice the length. So, it says the width is 40 feet, and then it refers to the word this. This is referring to the width, right? Because it's taking on what was in the previous sentence. I don't know the correct words for that. You'll have to ask your English teacher. Something about using pronouns or something like that. So this would be referring to the 40, which is the width. So it's saying 40 is, which means 40 equals 50 less than. So if you're doing 50 less than, Ian, what does that mean? It is subtraction. It is going to be at the beginning or the end if it's less than. Yeah, so subtract 50 at the end. And then it says twice the length. So we're doing this in terms of the length. We don't know our length. So L is going to be length. Sorry, I just made that cursive. So L is length. So Jennifer, twice the length would mean what? Yeah, 2 times L. So if we're doing this, we're saying 40 equals 2L minus 50. So we add 50 to both sides. Divide by 2. And we get the length equals 45 feet. Again, notice I always have my, units. Before we move on to the next slide, I'm just going to do problem number 7 on the next slide because we've done a lot of consecutive integer stuff already, so we only have 2 more examples to do. But what questions do you guys have for me so far? Any questions for me so far? Go ahead and get that copied down, and when everybody's ready, we'll move on to example 7. All right, example 7. For 4 less than 3 times the smaller of 2 consecutive even integers is twice the larger. What are the 2 integers? Okay, so we're dealing with consecutive even integers, so we have to think about what consecutive even integers mean. We always label the first x. So if my first is x here, how do I get to the next even integer? What do I do? Lexi? Yeah, so our second would be x plus 2. So this is the smaller, and that's the larger, just so you know. Questions on consecutive integers so far? Because you're going to make sure you can read it. Make sure if it just says consecutive integers, you're only adding 1. If it says even or odd, you're adding 2. So 4 less than. 4 less than, Maddie. What is that?
Minus 4.
Yeah, so that's going to be at the end because you're subtracting 4. Three times the smaller. What does 3 times the smaller mean? Mackenzie, what does 3 times the smaller mean? 3 times x, because x is the smaller, of 2 consecutive even integers is, which is equals, twice the larger. So Tommy, what does twice the larger mean? 2 times. Now, when you do 2 times the larger, can you just do x plus 2 there? Or what do you have to do with the x plus 2? Peyton? You need to put it in parentheses. Okay. So we do 3x minus 4 equals 2 times, right? It's twice, x plus 2. And then we can solve. So I do the distributive property first. Then I add. So x is 8, so what's the other number? Ian?
24. Right, yeah.
If the smaller is 8, what's the next even number after that?
Oh, I did that wrong. My bad, 10.
10.
I thought it was 3
Did-
times the smaller number, and I did.
You did it what was in the problem. I know what you did there. Got it. At least it made sense where you got it from. All right, whenever you guys are ready, go ahead and flip to the last problem. If you have a question about consecutive numbers, please let me know now. Bless you. All right, so it says find the dimensions, which means you need to find the measures of each side. Yes?
So it says like 4 less than 3 times, because it says then, that means it goes to.
Yeah, if it's like less than or more than, that means it's going at the end. Because you can think about it this way. So if I say that Ian has $20 and you have 4 less dollars than Ian, how much do you have?
16.
So you did 20 minus 4, right? You didn't do 4 minus 20, or that would mean you had negative $16, which really doesn't even make sense. So you can kind of think of it like that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So find the dimensions, which means the measures of each side of each figure if the perimeters of the figures are the same. So the perimeters of the figures are the same. What's a word in math that means the same? What's a math word that means the same? Maddie?
Ruin.
Congruent does mean the same, but let's think about a word that we'll use here. That's not wrong, though. Yeah. Equals. So that means we'll be able to set their perimeters together because they are equal. Okay, this is an equilateral triangle because all the sides are the same. That's what equilateral triangle means. So Hannah, how do I find the perimeter of that triangle? What would I do?
Add all the sides together.
And what are those sides lengths?
X plus 10.
So you have to keep doing that for the 3 sides, right?
Yeah.
Okay, how do I find the perimeter of that rectangle? How do I find the perimeter of that rectangle, Zach?
So you got it since the side of this,
Congruent on opposite sides, yes.
Yeah, 3x on that side,
So 3x plus
3x,
plus,
2x,
yeah, 2 times the quantity, x plus 4.
yeah, again.
And then that again. So we're going to have a pretty long problem here. All right. So that's 3x, 10, 10, and 10 is 30. You need to do the distributive property here first. But I'll add these two together for now. So that's 6x plus 2x plus 8 plus 2x plus 8. So I still have like terms to combine, so continue doing that. So I still have 3x plus 30. 6, 2, and 2 is 10. 8 and 8 is 16. So I subtract 10x on both sides. You get negative 7x plus 30 equals 16. Subtract 30. And I get negative 7x equals negative 14. So x equals 2. But it said, doesn't ask you just to find the variable, it asks you to find the measures of all the sides. So once you get that, Evan, once you're ready, tell me what I still need to do. What do you still need to do? If you know x is 2 and it wants you to find the measure of all the sides, what do you need to do?
You need to put 2 where x is and the triangle and the
Rectangle, yep.
yeah.
So these are all 12. Three times 2 is 6. And then 2 times the quantity 2 plus 4 is 2 times 6, which is 12. So does that make sense? 12 plus 12 plus 12 is 36. 12 and 12 is 24. 6 is 30, plus another 6 is 36. So are the perimeters the same? Yep. So we are good there.